Hello everyone, and welcome back to Indivisible. For the next couple of episodes, this is all going to be post-commentary, because I messed up in the recording and did not hit the commentary button in the Elgato Capture software. So we're just going to watch some videos together. How about that? So this is actually my second attempt at doing this post-commentary kind of video, because I really messed up, and the first run at this was completely fucking unlistenable. So we are just gonna talk as I climb the mountain here. I believe this is this is definitely Mount Sumeru. So, we are just gonna talk for a little bit, and, so what I talked about, the first attempt at this kind of commentary was, Pokemon Sword and Shield, and, now, because I've had some practice, unfortunately, I've had some practice in talking about this now. I have kind of thought about my points a little bit more, and I just kind of wanted to get a second attempt because I still wanted to talk about it. So the time of recording, we have now seen, I believe on the 9th of January, I still haven't checked, but on the 9th of January, we got a Pokemon Direct that announced the DLC, the paid DLC for Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now, that very much rubs me the wrong way, because it is, especially after the lacklusterness of Sword and Shield in general, for them to now charge, I have no idea what the fuck I was doing here. I was still trying to figure it out. But after the lackluster kind of showing that Sword and Shield gave, and it's quite widely considered to be quite lackluster, with almost no post-game content or anything like that. But after this lackluster showing, they essentially went, oh, well, we have all this DLC planned, so we hope that you continue to play the game. And it's pretty much a kick in the face for anyone who, did play the game or was going to play the game and then thought against it, because now we have this kind of horrible Weasley, like, the DLC isn't expensive, but that's not the point. If the DLC was expensive, it'd be more egregious, I admit, but essentially what this means is that essentially consumers that did not get the game, that admittedly was not advertised. It wasn't advertised to be this big showing of things that we'd never seen before. It was never advertised to be that. But I think the expectation was, this is the most lucrative franchise in the world, and the fact that there is no real gameplay polish to show for it. The wild area is just one area, and it's not even that expansive. or you know, like there's almost no post game apart from like a couple of Gigantamax Pokemon. To now say that there's more on the way, but you have to pay for it, after not giving,
most legends about ancient evil,
again, not what was promised, but what was expected.
just about me and Bob.
So maybe it's slightly unfair to do that.
We're careful and stick together, we'll be all right.
But for one of the most profitable franchises, and definitely like, you know, it's a very long-lasting franchise. It's been around for 23 years or even longer.
I'm gonna chop his head off.
You've said
Definitely one of the most profitable franchises in the world. It dwarfs Marvel. It, you know, I think the closest runner-up is Hello Kitty, and I think it's about $20 billion smaller, which is huge. That's more money than anything that I could hope to even come close to having. So, you know, this huge multimedia franchise is essentially waving its clout around in a way that I find extremely offensive, because it doesn't achieve anything. You know, this content that they're adding and charging extra for should have been in the base game, and the fact that it wasn't is, and because of the proximity to this, or the proximity to the release date of Sword and Shield itself, you know that they were working on this before Sword and Shield came out. So it's quite an egregious thing, at least for me, in my eyes. It's not an okay thing to do for someone to say, okay, we're making a game, we're not going to give you all of it, and then we're going to charge you extra for the stuff that you want, or the stuff that you should have got. It's like early access, but more insidious. And it's actually mind-boggling that we have reached a point in the games industry where people think that this is okay. What was I going to say? So Pokemon Sword and Shield, I can look this up, but I'm pretty sure that Pokemon Sword and Shield are the most profitable, or the most sold generations, like in a short time, like opening month or something like that. They sold like probably 7 million copies or something like that. in its opening month. So that's pretty crazy. In the lifetime, or like when they stopped keeping track, I think a lot of like the portable, well, all of the portable Pokemon games tended to be somewhere in the region of, you know, 18 to 23 million, something like that. So, and because of the wholesale kind of appeal of the Switch, it's very easy to imagine another large market appeal. So these games, because reviews and controversy clearly didn't stop them from selling well, these games could quite easily end up being on equal footing with some of the best-selling lifetime best-selling Pokemon games. So if controversy hasn't stopped it, and the lackluster kind of polish and gameplay finesse, I guess you'd say, just polish, you know what I mean? The fact that there is so little of that in Pokemon Sword and Shield, and now they don't expect you to pay for the DLC, but they definitely are encouraging it, and they're encouraging the practice of that DLC because they're charging for it. You know, it's not free. They didn't say, okay, we messed up, we need to actually go back and we need to actually go back and give these people the content that was supposed to be in the game in the first place. They didn't do that. They said, okay, this game is sold well, we were already working on DLC, that's why the game is short, and now we're going to charge you for it. It is blatant money grabbing, and in modern capitalism, that it shouldn't be fine, but it is reasonable to kind of do that for a business model as lucrative as Pokemon. So I think now
Pay attention. You'll learn something, huh?
you learn something, it's important to realize. Excuse me. It's important to realize that encouraging these business practices. God, words are hard. Business practices is detrimental to video games as a whole. Bethesda does it all the time. BioWare does it a lot. These blatantly unpolished, unfinished games that get shipped out and then patched later, or DLC that makes things work. And I am not okay with that practice. Clearly. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking about it. So, what I think is important to realize is that Game Freak is a small company when it doesn't need to be. As I said before, it has a equal third share in one of the most lucrative franchises in the world. It should have the money to invest in its dev team, to make sure that there are people that are passionate about Pokemon, that have the skills and expertise to develop for Pokemon, to make sure that it does actually have the resources that it deserves.
I'll return the favor.
So, maybe that's unreasonable. I hope it's not, because that's my kind of ideal version of a game. They say that you shouldn't work on something that you're a fan of. But it's clear, at least from the last couple of versions of Pokemon, well, I guess they don't really say that you shouldn't work on something that you're a fan of, but I think it makes you kind of it's a valid kind of view if it does happen, because it is quite easy to get lost in the rose-tinted goggles of nostalgia for Pokemon or something like that. But I think they actually need right now is some fresh pairs of eyes Game Freak is not a large company, so they could definitely afford to expand and actually make sure that Pokemon, their flagship franchise that has made them tens of billions of dollars, actually gets the love and attention that it deserves. You know, this is one of the most beloved franchises in the world. And to not give Pokemon that kind of extra attention is a big kick in the face for people that are invested in the franchise, like me. I've been playing Pokemon games for 23 years now. And... maybe not 23. 22, yeah, because it's 2020 now. Oh my god. And I got Pokemon Blue in 1998. How fucking crazy is that? God, I'm so old. I turned 27 nearly 2 weeks ago. So, you know, lots of people have this emotional investment in what Pokemon does, and kids that are just getting into the franchise now are not seeing the lacklusterness for what it is, because they don't have that kind of critical awareness or that perspective that, you know, older players get. And I realize that Pokemon, by and large, is a series for children, but you can't ship out crap and then expect kids to just, you know, lap it up. You can't do that, especially in this day and age. Like, it's 2020 now. Fucking, if a kid wants to do something and they play a game and it is not fun, or it doesn't work, or some of the features that they expected, maybe they played the last Pokemon game, or, you know, they had a 3DS and they, you know, like, all of these different things, maybe they somehow managed to see all the controversy that was surrounding Sword and Shield from the more hardcore fans like me. Probably not from me, because I don't rate my show for kids, but it's important to recognize, even for massive companies like Pokemon or Nintendo, that if you don't supply good, worthwhile games that don't give people, like, not even just kids, but people in general, if you don't give them enough stimulation because you decided to skimp out on content because you wanted DLC to squeeze even more money out of consumers, then kids aren't going to want to play it, because there's nothing there for them. And it's important to realize this, because it just doesn't seem to phase these people at all. You can't claim that this franchise has a multi-market or multi-demographic appeal, and then do nothing to engage the people that you try your hardest to engage, which is kids. So the DLC plan would have been cool. I would have been fine with it if it was free. If they were rolling it out like Capcom is doing with Monster Hunter, like, the only paid DLC for Monster Hunter was Iceborne, and that's because Iceborne was massive. It was essentially the game all over again. But Capcom is constantly, you know, releasing updates, releasing new monsters, releasing all of this stuff to keep people invested in playing their game because they know what their playership is. They know that the majority of people that are playing their game are the fans that have been playing Monster Hunter for a really long time, and but even the people that came to the series fresh, like me, I didn't start with previous Monster Hunters. I got into Monster Hunter with Monster Hunter World, but it's has this kind of appeal to it that you don't really get with other games, and that's because it's constantly updating and constantly changing, and that's why you want the free DLC, because if you were constantly paying for DLC, like a season pass that was like $100 or something like that, then no one would get it, and so it would essentially be pay to win again. And so that's kind of what we're seeing with the Sword and Shield DLC. Jesus, Ginseng just got fucked. But now what we're seeing with the Pokemon DLC, and I will make the concession that the new Pokemon will be added to every single Pokédex. So I imagine that you'll be able to trade for them. I'm pretty sure you can. I'm pretty sure even if you don't buy the DLC, that you can trade for the DLC Pokemon and they will be compatible with your game. That's cool, and I think that's a good concession to make. However, it is far too little, far too late. Now, it's a good thing that I went back and checked this ring-a-ding-ding-ding, whatever it's called. Well, maybe I didn't. Maybe I'll just, like, saw it through the wall or something. I don't remember. Well, maybe I just left it. Okay. Because I'm not sure if it's actually in my inventory still. But I will make the concession that having the DLC Pokemon available without actually having the DLC is a good move. However, and there was always going to be a caveat to that statement, it is completely unacceptable for me, and you may disagree, and you're more than welcome to disagree with me on this. If these DLC are adding more content that is ostensibly like the regions aren't available to the new region, like the what's it called, the Armor Island and Coral or Crown Tundra or something. Those regions aren't available, but the Pokemon are. Again, that's a way to entice people into getting the DLC, and that would be fine if the game was not, if the base game was not already so lacking in content. Also, there's very little kind of precedent for having DLC in the first place. It doesn't really kind of translate to Pokemon very well. No other Pokemon game has had DLC, but then again, no other Pokemon game has been on a home console. But that kind of blind profiteering, deliberately short selling a game so that you can make DLC for it and make more money, is exactly what I have been feeling is wrong with the games industry for a long time now. What I find particularly annoying or unsettling is this kind of releasing a game that sucks and then, you know, either patching it until it's good again. It's the Bethesda effect, essentially. But it's not okay. It's not okay for the Pokemon company to deliberately short sell a game so that they can make more money out of it. And feel free to disagree with me if you actually do. You know, if you're a fucking bootlicker or whatever, then you can, you know, kiss capitalist ass all you like. But it is extremely not okay with me. That being said, a lot of the Pokemon that are in the DLC have very strange designs. The legendary for the Crown DLC is so bizarre. It's basically just like a big head with like vestigial limbs that don't really do anything, and it's just kind of horrifying. But you know, it's, what can you do at that point, really? Like, some designs are hit and miss. I personally am not a huge fan of a lot of Gen 1 designs. I find a lot of them to be not amazing. But at the time when I was a kid, you know, 1998, fuck yeah, I love all the Pokemon. I didn't have a favorite in Gen 1. I think I was still a bit, you know, just because I finished Gen 1 and then I think I just kind of stopped. So that cut there is a little bit weird. I'm just going to talk about the game for a sec, because this is Indivisible and it's the game that I was playing and we are watching. So I don't understand why it took me about 15 minutes to recreate what I did on the first attempt, but it definitely did, and I was not sure how to proceed. Yeah. So what was I going to say? The DLC. So one of the biggest issues that I have is that they are adding 200 new Pokemon to Sword and Shield with the DLCs. I think it's actually over 200 Pokemon. I'm not sure how many of those are actually like new content, like new Pokemon that are unique to the DLCs. I imagine there's a few. But the fact that they said that they were cutting Pokemon in order to, you know, new animations, new like polish for the game and all this kind of stuff, and then, you know, the huge curry Pokédex is basically pointless after, you know, late game. Like, it doesn't make any sense to have it in the game if it has no use.
We'll grow taller too.
The raid battles, while fun, just don't work on Nintendo Online. It is. I've been told that it's almost impossible to find actual online partners for a raid battle, and that is extremely disappointing. Because that was the one thing that I was really excited about for Pokemon Sword and Shield, is that it actually had, admittedly a quite superficial one, but it actually had a cool co-op mode. You know, like fighting a fucking raid boss in Pokemon. That's a really cool idea. And you know, they ripped it out of Pokemon Go, but still, like, that kind of concept was really cool. And I was really excited, but with Nintendo Online being the way it is, there's no fucking way that it doesn't work. And it's just incomprehensible to have this big kind of feature that features online and online play and all these kind of things, and you just can't get it to work. Anyway, so the DLC Pokemon. I'm getting off track. So the DLC Pokemon, they said that they wanted to do all these animations and shit like that. So they cut like 500 Pokemon out of the Pokédex. There was not going to be any national decks. There was not going to be any of that. But in this one, we don't know how many are going to be new Pokemon unique to the DLC. I can't imagine it being too many. And if they are, they're redesigns of old shit. Like Urshifu is literally just like Ursaring, but a different kind of design for it. Kind of in the way that Zigzagoon and Linoon got redesigns, and then another evolution in Obstagoon. And I love what they did with the Pokemon redesigns. I think that's a really cool idea. It kind of builds on the concept of like the Galar forms, instead of like the Alolan forms from Gen 7, which were also cool, but you know, not quite as cool as these ones. I think they really did a good job of the Pokemon designs for this one. So it's going to be interesting to see just how many new Pokemon there are going to be. Because and they also haven't said that these are going to be the only DLC. Like, this is the pack that like these two are going to be in the same pack, and then there may be other ones in the future. So the fact that they could in fact phase in the national decks through DLC would be cool if they weren't fucking charging for it. It really gets to me. There's so much about Sword and Shield to dislike. And I think we're just about to get to the end of the episode. I think this is just before the boss. Yeah, it is. Okay, so thank you for listening to me ramble about Pokemon for a really long time. And thank you so much for watching. We're just gonna watch this cutscene for a second, then I'll say goodbye.
Your curiosity has bested your judgment, and your strength has carried you here. To think, after all my efforts, after all these years of breaking once proud warriors, you were the only one I needed.
I don't want to hear any of that stuff. I just want to avenge my father.
You aren't the least bit curious about your past? Where you truly come from? Well, no matter. It saves me explaining. Now follow me, child, and we'll plunge the world into darkness!
Lord Ravanavar,
Dar actually gets a really good
always considered you the father I never had.
a really good arc
You
in this
raised me
bit.
and taught me right from wrong. You always said you wanted a world of peace.
Quiet yourself, boy. I suppose I must have scooped you off the streets because you had a fair amount of itty. But compared to this girl, you are nothing. World of peace? Of course. The only peaceful world is one without humanity. Be gone with you! Now, girl, let us resume.
No talking! I'm coming for your head!
And then we chop off his head. And that's it! That's the game. Over!
I've done it!
I was kidding about there being a boss.
Father, you are avenged.
Never mind. Bad guy. His real form. He becomes a Power Ranger. And, this, ew, gross, ill. This fight is really fucking annoying. So, I will see you in the next post-commentary video. And until then, bye-bye.